Okay, the music is off. Let's spotlight. Um, what's up? What's up? What's up, everyone? We are having way too much fun. My name is Kenny. And with me, as always, my amazing co-host, Milka Moran. Milka, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Kenny. How are you doing?
I am good. Life is
How's the
great.
weather on your part of the DMV?
Look. It hasn't rained, but it's been raining. Explain. I don't. It's not giving. It's not giving what it's supposed to have gave. Um.
Honestly, we were having really good weather to the point where I was almost getting sick of it. I was kind of getting bored. I don't know if I'm not supposed to say that, but
It is too much. Well, it's about to be cold, so shout out to that. I know we have a lot of people from different places in the chat. I hope it is staying warm wherever you are because it's about to get disgusting. I hate the winter. You know, you can put in the chat too your favorite season. Know that there is a right answer, but feel free to just jump in. There you go. And I see a lot of people. Oh, and now it's some wrong people. I knew there were going to be a few people who just wanted to throw out incorrect answers. I think for the most part, we understand. I see some people with wrong answers, some summers, some winters, some spring. Somebody put winter and spring. You are wrong twice. You had a 25% chance. You were okay. We could talk about seasons all day, but we got a packed house on part because we have such an amazing guest tonight, and that's what you're here to see probably. So let's get right to it. Starting with we've kind of already introduced ourselves, but real quick, let me just tell you a little bit about my co-host so you kind of know who you're talking to. So Milka Moran is from Northern Virginia. She likes cruller donuts, and they're no, wait. She thinks cruller donuts are the superior donut. That's so ugly. I can't. You could have just said you like them. Oh, okay. She Milka Moran, my amazing host, thinks cruller donuts are the superior donut. She loves onions, and she's never moved before. So that's just some stuff about her, just so you can judge her while this is happening. Because the superior, I don't even know. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what a cruller donut is. Am I the only one?
you'll know it. Like if you, it's like a French cruller. It's kind of like I don't even know how to demonstrate it, but it's if someone can drop an image, that's what it is.
If someone in the chat, please explain to me what a cruller donut is.
It's once you know. Like I have never met someone like those donuts.
It's just a twisty donut. That's not even a donut. How could it be superior?
They're crullers. If you guys know like those Krispy Kreme cruller donuts, you know. But I've said it before and I've said it again. Onions are a versatile vegetable. Don't taste bad on anything. And you know, fortunately and unfortunately, I guess you can do it. I've never moved before, so I don't know what to do with that. I just find it very.
Those are good facts. You should.
But,
yeah, no, do mine.
My amazing co-host Kenny, as he says, gets hiccups from spicy food. Is reading Dune, but isn't really enjoying it. I don't know how to feel about that. And he prefers fire type Pokemon. So do you have anything to offer?
I really think all of mine are pretty self-explanatory. I just want to say the first one, look. It's not that I can't have spicy food because I don't want y'all thinking I'm out here with a weak palate. With I can handle it. I will just get the hiccups. My body, like, I think it's like the like the oppressions in my body, so my body will respond to that, but my spirit is fine. I don't gotta explain anything. Fire type Pokemon are the best Pokemon. If you choose anything else for your starter, you're not trash, but you're not it. You're not giving. I think we're done. I feel like this is our longest intro, but I'm here for it, honestly.
Thank you for tolerating us as we poke at each other.
Thank you so much for tolerating us. We are doing great. Actually, we usually do the last Thursday. For anybody who's been here before, we usually do the last Thursday. So thank you guys for showing up on the first Thursday, I believe. It means a whole bunch. Okay, but let's get into like what we're about. Let's get into anything besides cruller donuts and fire type Pokemon. So for those that haven't been to the show before, we do this part where we kick it for a little bit in the beginning before we bring up our amazing feature. The feature is going to read their poem, which is actually, we're terrible. We didn't preface, this is all a part of LMSchat, which is a part of LMSVoice, which if you're a teacher or a student, or you just like poetry, you like doing workshops, or you like reading, anything really that is in that like web, you will love it at LMSVoice. So we'll put the link in the chat. You can go there and find workshops based on your favorite poems. There's workshops based on this poem that we're doing today. So afterwards, if you're like, wow, I really want to do like an after poem, you could go there, do that. Yeah. So I keep losing my whole place. It's funny, Milka, because you were talking. You were saying you were going to be the person, but I'm the.
So follow up. You all may notice that we do have closed captioning available, and you can adjust the settings. So if you want to increase the text, just go into your Zoom settings, and it can be a much more pleasurable experience. I know mine's really big because my vision is not the best. So, but thank you, Kenny, for plugging in LMSVoice and LMSchat. And I think it's now time to start introducing our special guest, José Olivarez. And I'll start off by reading his bio.
Wait, Milka. I remembered something. That Brian told us to. I'm sorry. I'm that host. Milka's that host, and I'm the that host. Also, just so you guys know, please contribute to the chat, because the chat is great and we love hearing from y'all. Please be appropriate. So like the chat can be lit, but don't be ignorant. We'll boot you. We'll get you out of here. Y'all are hilarious though. Who said onions are 90%? I'm over it. Okay, let's introduce our amazing teacher. You were right. That was the best thing to do.
Okay, so José Olivarez is the son of Mexican immigrants. His debut book of poems, Citizen Illegal, was a finalist for the Penn Gene Stein Award and a winner of the 2018 Chicago Review of Books Poetry Prize. It was named a top book of 2018 by the Adroit Journal, NPR, and the New York Public Library. Along with Felicia Chavez and Willie Perdomo, he co-edited the poetry anthology, The Breakfast Beats Poets, Volume 4, Latinx.
He is the co-host of the poetry podcast, The Poetry Guys. In 2018, he was awarded the first annual Author and Artist Injustice Award from the Phillips Brooks House Association and named a debut poet of 2018 by Poets and Writers. In 2019, he was awarded a Ruth Lilly and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Poetry Fellowship, that's always a mouthful, from the Poetry Foundation. His work has been featured in the New York Times, the Paris Review, and elsewhere. Look him up. He's super cool. His poems are awesome. And yeah, I think that's it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to the stage our guest, José Olivarez.
We'll be reading Poem Where No One is Deported, and you can find the link in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. I feel like I'm unqualified to be on the stage. I just want to get more of the Kenny and Milka show. You know what I mean? That was really excellent. I love onions. I'm glad to see onions get a shout out. I think they get a bad rap. They have this stigma for causing bad breath. Onions are great. Onions are great. We need to embrace onions. Also really love fire starter Pokemon. You know what I mean? I just feel like I really belong here. And so I'm grateful for all of that. I'm going to read this poem. This poem is called poem Where No One Is Deported. Thank you all so much for being here. And I'm excited for the conversation. Poem Where No One Is Deported. Now, I like to imagine La Migra running into the sock factory where my mom and her friends worked. It was all women who worked there, women who braided each other's hair during breaks, women who wore rosaries and never had a hair out of place, women who were ready for cameras or for God, who ended all their sentences with, si Dios quiere, as in the day before the immigration raid, when the rumor of a raid was passed around like bread, and the women made plans, si Dios quiere. So when the immigration officers arrived, they found boxes of socks and all the women absent, safe at home. Those officers thought no one was working. They were wrong. The women would say it was God working, and it was God. But the God my mom taught us to fear was vengeful. He might have wet his thumb and wiped La Migra out of this world like a smudge on a mirror. This God was the God that woke me up at 7 a.m. every day for school to let me know there was food in the fridge for me and my brothers. I never asked my mom where the food came from, but she told me anyway. Gracias a Dios. Gracias a Dios del chisme, who heard all La Migra's plans and whispered them into the right ears to keep our family safe.
Wonderful.
For the poet, y'all. Wait, oh shit.
Absolutely wonderful. I don't see everybody's virtual hands.
Virtual hands now. Wait, oh no, why is Brian here? Brian, get out of here. As Milka gets on the stage eventually, thank you, Jose, for joining us. You absolutely belong here. I respect your onion choice, even though there are things that I won't understand that I can respect. But yeah, I would absolutely love to get into the questions for this because we had not only a lot of questions ourselves, but a lot of audience. But I think maybe a good place to start is, I don't know if this is a poem you read a lot, but how does it feel returning to it? How does it feel reading it now?
It's a poem that I read at most of my readings at this point, in part because it's part of a new collection that I'm working on. But two, I think it's a poem that has a lot of energy and a poem that that is kind of like a tent pole for the things that I'm working on. It makes it easy to structure a reading with other poems around this poem. So it feels good. I wrote this poem, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it, but one of the reasons I wrote this poem was because I wanted to feel powerful in a moment of extreme powerlessness. And so I do get that feeling. So I think in that sense, the poem feels successful to me.
Word, definitely. And absolutely, let's get into it. I think a perfect place to start would be, we had an audience question coming to us from Joshua Hernandez, a student at George Washington College Prep in Chicago, Illinois. Shout out Chicago family. We're so happy to have you. But the question was, what did the process of writing this poem look like for you? And maybe like also with that, like the process being like what birthed this poem as an idea even, to like the very end of it where it's on the page.
Yeah. The root of the poem comes from two kind of big cultural moments. I don't know if they were big everywhere, but they were big to me. One is I want to say it was late 2019. It must have been 2019. It was in the summer of 2019. There was a Salvadoran person and his daughter who drowned in the Rio Grande crossing to get over to the United States. And for like multiple days, all of my social media feeds were flooded with these images of the father and the daughter kind of laying on the ground lifeless, right? And it made me think about how I mean, there's no good outcome in that scenario, right? But I mean, I saw so many people sharing the image and being like, we need to be talking more about this. And yet at the same time, I felt like I was flinching every time it was shared, and that the sharing was about something else, right? So that happened. And then in early 2020, so last year, there was a book controversy. There was a book called American Dirt, published, and in the book, which was really reviewed brilliantly by Medium Gerba. I don't know if someone wants to drop the link to that review in the chat, but Miriam goes really hard at the book because it's kind of like a caricature of all the worst parts of the migration story. You know, it's like this family, they're running from like the cartels, and there's also like a secret. It turns out that the leader of the cartel was having a love affair with the family. And so it's all sorts of, if it was just kind of like a messy Western romance, it probably would have been fine. But instead, like, the bookseller marketed it as like, this is gonna help migrant people find their humanity, right? And they also did all sorts of weird things where they like brought out like barbed wire cakes or something. They thought that would really bring home the emotion. But that got me thinking about how in a lot of conversations, the way that Latinx stories, and maybe more specifically like migrant stories, are told are they're like, when people want to make it a Latinx cultural story, they'll like sprinkle in these moments of really hard trauma, right? They'll sprinkle in a deportation, they'll sprinkle in an encounter with immigration. And so I remember in the face, like reflecting on all of those things and just feeling tired, right, of having these conversations, feeling at a loss. Like I don't want to, I'm kind of upset with myself that I even mentioned, you know, this book, American Dirt, because I'm sick of it. I don't really, it's not good. I don't want to talk about it, right? I feel like there's other things I would rather be driving my energy towards. And so anyway, I wanted to write a poem where like the title says, poem where no deportations happen, right? Poem where explicitly we're going to revel in a moment where maybe that is where like the threat of deportation is present, and yet the people in the story are going to foil it. And that made me remember the story in the poem, which is a true story. Like I remember my mom staying home and telling me it was because, you know, she heard whispers that there was going to be an immigration rate. And I just remember, like, I don't know where my mom would hear those whispers, you know what I mean? But she heard those whispers, and everyone she worked with, all of them knew. And so I wanted to capture that type of power, that feeling of like, yes, when you are an undocumented person in this country, there is a lot stacked up on you. And yet at the same time, the way that I saw my parents and other, you know, friends and family kind of navigate that experience and really look out for one another, I wanted to capture that part of it. I wanted to write about that.
And I think it's really interesting kind of how you're talking about with some poems, especially when you're talking about a subject like this, the things you choose to show and the things you don't. Have you ever been in a place, maybe even with this poem, where you felt like there were things maybe you were on the fence about showing, or things you felt like for example, some images that you couldn't tell if like, is this like a powerful image, or is this just something that's going to make people flinch, or is this just something that like is maybe throwing dirt at a dirt pile, or is how it feels to me at least sometimes.
That's a good question. I think most of this poem came pretty fluidly because I immediately connected it to that moment. The ending changed with time. So the first ending was after, you know, the officers thought no one was working, they were wrong. The women would say it was God working. And so I think that the original ending was just a repetition of it was God working. And then the more that I thought about it, I was like, I wanted to differentiate between almost like different kinds of gods at work, right? And there was like, because if God exists, then God exists also for La Migra, right? For migration officers. But that God is a different God. It's this vengeful God that believes in wiping people out. You know what I mean? And in the poem, I say that like that was the God that I was taught to believe in, was the God of fear, the God of retribution, right? I think about like Lot's wife who turns back and turns into salt as like the village burns behind her, right? Like that is a vengeful, or at least I view it as like an act of vengeance. And instead I wanted to redirect the ending towards the God that I saw my mom, who's very Catholic, believe in, even though, you know, she would claim that we had the same God at the time, but like my mom's actions were always, you know, like when I say like there was always food and I didn't, you know, my mom was that kind of holy force in my life. My mom and other women in my life, they were the ones where, you know, you didn't even have to ask them to step up. They were already there, already working on our behalf, already making things happen while we were like children sleeping in to watch Saturday cartoons, right? They were already at work. And so I wanted to capture some of that spirit, that what I've learned to appreciate in the time since, how much of this kind of like invisible prayer was not actually prayer, but was the work of various women in my community, right? I did have an experience years ago that made me feel like I needed to be more intentional with my poetry. And so what I'll tell you that story real quick. Like back in like 2012, I had like a Kinko's chapbook that I worked on with a friend, and I was really proud of the book. We like shared the same poetry prompts and then published, like the poems that we wrote were wildly different, but we thought it'd be cool to publish both of those poems side by side. And a lot of my poems were about like the foreclosure that my parents were going through, that my family was going through, and thinking about like losing our family house and what was going to happen, and trying to feel trying to work my way through some of that anger and try to like find power in that situation, right? And I remember I did a reading, and like a friend of mine came up to me afterwards, and they were like, "I'm sorry that happened to you." And I just remember feeling like I never want to write a poem that gives someone the chance to pity me. You know what I mean? That's not why I wrote the poem. That's not why I'm here. And so it made me really take care of when I'm writing, whether it's, you know, my story or like my family story or anything, what am I attempting here? Like, how can I do it in a way that does more than just give people a reason to be like, wow, this is so sad?
You know, I have like a follow-up question to that comment. You know, when you wrote this poem, you know, thinking about what you just said, what did you want people to get out of this poem? Or like, did you have a specific audience in mind when you were writing it? Or was it just to yourself and it's just like whoever witnesses it?
Yeah, what I wanted people to get from it was that sense of like, I don't know what the word is. I don't know if to call it mischief or almost like a type of brujeria, right? Like this kind of magic that undocumented people in my community were able to wield to protect each other, to keep each other safe. And because I just, I just think that we are I believe that we are more powerful than we know sometimes. So that's what I wanted to capture. And then in terms of my audience, I wanted to write it for those women, you know what I mean? For my mom and my mom's friends who all work together, who, like carpool to work, who like somehow knew everything before, you know what I mean? They knew everything before it happened. They knew when we got in trouble before we, you know what I mean? Like they knew everything. And so that was what I was writing it to try and I was writing it for them.
Word, I think maybe we have time for one more question, unless I'm tripping. Well, I'm gonna do it anyway because I think in the chat, I think Tanaya asked a really good question, which was about the capitalization in some of your poems, and I think you were already talking about God and how God lives in this poem, and I think throughout your work, as me and Milka have been going through it, like whether it's in like. Also, obviously, get his book. We're gonna plug it in a second. But like you have the heaven for Mexicans in here, and you also have, I think, in the poem, my parents hold like luggage. This like idea of like what kind of God is there, and even in the poem, you have a capitalization of God in the beginning, but then afterwards, like I think that's the only word capitalized in the poem. But maybe I'm tripping. I don't got the eyes like I used to. But I'm curious about the choice of capitalization there as well, and how that works into like the choice of capitalization by itself, and also how that connects to the God in this poem.
Yeah, that's a great question. In terms of capitalization, I mostly do not use capital letters because of two reasons. One, because I want to place myself in lineage and in conversation with the poets that inspired me. And so those are people like Lucille Clifton and June Jordan. And the reason that they would say, which I agree with, that they didn't use capital letters is because, they used to say that like the capital I is about the ego, right? If I'm telling a story and it's about me and I use the you know what I mean? It's my story. But even when writing first person narratives, what I'm hoping to do is write, for community purposes, but also like a communal eye, an eye that people can kind of more easily slip into the role of speaker and not necessarily empathize with the speaker, but participate as the speaker, So that's why I use a lowercase I for those two reasons. And then in terms of like how capitalization works in this poem, to be honest, Kenny, I don't know. I hadn't noticed that first God is capitalized and then the other ones are not. I think maybe, the honest answer is that it might just be like us, like maybe Microsoft Word auto capitalized that one God for me, or maybe I was moving quickly. I could give you it, like when I think about it, the reason that if I did it on purpose, the reason I would do it would be because it's the first instance where God shows up, and it's the God of the women in that room and my mom who would absolutely capitalize God and would never dream of, a lowercase God who, I was raised in the Catholic Church. And so like, that's part of the reason why these different gods kind of pervade a lot of my work, because though, I'm not necessarily a practicing Catholic, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know when the last time I gave up something for Lent was, but I was raised in that tradition. So a lot of those stories are they're part of my imagination, And so even when I don't mean to bring divinity into a moment, I still can't help but do it. It's how it's like one of the prisms that I use to see the world.
No, that's real. And also shout out, I feel like that's the great thing about poetry is like that was not necessarily maybe on purpose, but I think like reading it, I found a lot of, or I was definitely caught on it immediately. And you didn't mean it, but I was like, it gave me a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of amazing stuff, and that was amazing as well. Thank you, Jose. Thank y'all for participating in the chat as well. It's super fun. Also, just so we're about to go into the commercial section. So Jose, if you want to like grab water or something, that time to do that. But y'all audience, don't grab water. Don't do it. Because we're gonna tell you about a bit of stuff. So yeah, Milka, would you like to talk a little bit about some stuff?
Yes. So if you all want to follow, hear more about Jose, I'm pasting his social media. Give me one sec because I was caught off guard. So his Twitter and his Instagram are the same. Pasting it right now. If you want to go follow him. Oh, I thought I could type fast. Okay, now if you want to go follow him on Instagram and Twitter or Instagram.
I got you. I'm gonna copy the rest of the stuff, Milka. I got you.
But what Kenny's copying and pasting is Citizen Illegal, which is from, I'm so sorry, give me 1 second. I just gotta clip my thoughts.
Just take your time now, as they say in the church. Take it.
Yeah, so right now Kenny's copying the webpage to Jose's website where you can learn more about him, see his works like Citizen Illegal, as well as the Breakbeat Poets Volume 4 Latinx. Super cool. I just want to say how exciting it has been like listening to you talk and break down this poem. I never know what my facial expressions look like, but it's just super awesome hearing you like give us the context behind the writing. So thank you for that. Let me see if Kenny has finished.
I want to lift up that your facial expressions are great, Milka. As it goes, I think everyone can approve that in the chat. Yours are the best. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Nicole. Sometimes I just need one person. I just need one person to agree with me, and I know I'm right. So also, obviously go get all of Jose's stuff. It's freaking amazing. Latinx, I don't, that one's at work. I don't have it on me, but it's also great. And he does a lot of amazing work, and you want to stay tuned for what's next, because apparently he already kind of told y'all there are projects in the works. There's a call coming from in the house. So obviously get on that. But also just to tell y'all a little bit more about LMSchat and what's that all about. So we're gonna put the links. You know, we're kind of slow with the links, as you can see, but you're gonna, oh, actually it's right there. Shout out Milka, the better host. But yeah, go there, sign up. Oh, I see you, Matt. I see you, Matt, with the book on there. Don't think it was gonna go past me, Matt. I see you repping. Rep your squad. Put it up. But yeah, obviously, what was I saying? LMSVoice. So go there, make an account. So not only will you be able to get all that good workshop stuff, but if you have questions for the audience, because we have super amazing guests. We've had Sarah Kay, we've had Safia El Hilla, we've had Patricia Smith. We have super duper amazing people all the time, and you'll be able to submit your questions ahead of time, so we can look over it and maybe ask for you, and you'll be able to see the rest of these. We had fun with Ross Gay last month. We're gonna have super amazing people in the past. I don't know. Maybe we'll talk to the ghost of Gwendolyn Brooks next. You don't know what we're gonna do. We're unpredictable. Is what I'm trying to say. That would be such a great. It's just a seance, the whole thing. Okay, but we gotta move on. I'm in a silly mood tonight, as y'all can tell. But please go to LMSVoice, make your account. Do that, and hang with us next month, every last Thursday. I think I'm done. I think I did good, Milka. I feel
you did
like
great. You did great. Thank you, Kenny. And just to add on, I don't know if you said this, you can also get access to free workshops and writing workshop materials that has to do with amazing poets we've included. It's an awesome database. Just all you have to do is make an account. It's free, and you'll see poems like from José Olivarez and other amazing poets. So I have an account. I know Kenny has an account. Brian Hannon has an account. José Olivarez is about to make an account. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, he's gonna make.
No.
He hasn't, but he will. So just do it.
Okay, so now let's move on to our culture section, which is, as always, the faith section, because I'm spearheading it. So getting started, I want to choose what question to start us off with. Honestly, since we were talking about the books, let's start off with, Citizen Illegal. You wrote the poems for that book in 2018. And I was super intrigued by the cover art of the book. And I just kind of want to get more information about it. What's the significance behind the drawings? I'm also going to paste the link again to his website where you can get a better look for our audience members at the cover art while he breaks it down for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So the cover art was done by a friend of mine named Rock, who is a visual artist, originally from Phoenix, Arizona, but living and working in Chicago for a long time now. And he has artwork, he does murals, and his murals are all over Chicago. And so since the first time that I've seen his work, I've always felt that it was a perfect fit to complement what I'm trying to do as a poet, in part because, as you see, so he always kind of paints the same figure, which is like a person wearing like various bird masks, or sometimes other animal masks, but usually a bird mask. And what I love about that is that for me, it kind of symbolizes the experience of, of like working class people, of migrant people, various immigrant communities, of like, at the end of the day, you're just a person, right? And you're up against a whole lot in this world. And yet, there's still this kind of like love and maybe hope and stubbornness, whatever it is that you kind of cling on to try and like keep going, right? And for me, that's what the bird mask symbolizes, right? Like, it's not magic. It's not going to automatically take you where you want to go, but it's like a little bit of an armor that you can put on to try and get where you want to go, right? And so that's the most obvious symbol. Some of the other symbols in the artwork, the tower behind the character, it looks like the Sears Tower, which is, a big skyscraper that we're very proud of for various reasons in Chicago. There's also like, you can see the talons of an eagle carrying a snake that comes from the Mexican flag. The character is like, has a halo, but then also has like some smoke near him. There's like a skull. So there's like a lot of conflicting images that I really appreciate about it. And I that's what I was trying to do with the book, right? Was like, try to complicate some of the stories about what it is to be first generation, what happens after you cross the border and you're here with your family, and what are you supposed to do now? So that's a little bit about the artwork. Rock is fire. I agree, Melissa. Shout out to Rock. He's also on Instagram. His Instagram is just Rock, so you can follow him too. His artwork is really great.
Plugging in everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll paste that in a moment as I pull up the next question, because me and multitasking right now is struggling. But I think the next question that I have for you, I'll ask the question. So this is from Montserrat Munoz, who's a teacher from Green Hill School, Dallas, Texas. And they ask, how do you think that your hyphen identity has influenced your writing? And have you ever felt like you needed to code switch as a writer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think part of what I learned while writing the book is that for a long time I felt conflict about, this so-called hyphen identity, right? Like, am I more Mexican? Am I more American? Do I belong in either place? And what I've what I learned while writing the book is that instead of trying to run from this kind of in-betweenness, I think what I've learned is that for me, the place that feels most comfortable, the people who feel most like my people, you know, my community, are people that I've met in that in-between, right? Who belong maybe neither fully to America nor anywhere else, and who are at the same time doing the work of trying to imagine something, a place, something we can all hold on to that feels like home for all of us, right? And so for me, that feels like a lesson that I learned writing the book, is that absolutely, you know, my hyphenated identity has impacted how I write and, you know, what I choose to write about. But I think at the end of the day, what I learned about is that there's beauty in the in-between, and you don't have to choose a side necessarily. And then was there a second part to that question that I just have totally forgotten?
Or first of all, this beautiful response. But the second question was, have you ever felt like you needed to code switch as a writer?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think I don't think so. No, I think partly because I began writing in community spaces, like probably like LMSVoice. And so I had to, so I knew right away that there was, what drew me to poetry was that I didn't have to put on somebody else's voice to write my poems. I could find a way to write using the language that I use all the time. And so, I mean, to be honest, like that's why I didn't really take I took creative writing, but I didn't take a poetry class in college because I didn't want to be told that I needed to write in a language that wasn't my own. And at the time, like I was young enough that I was stubborn, and I was also young enough that I didn't know a ton about poetry. And so I was like, if I go to school and study poetry, they're gonna show me like only Robert Frost. Like, no disrespect to Robert Frost, because I'm sure he has some good poems, but like I didn't want to only read Robert Frost. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want someone to like put Robert Frost in front of me and be like, you're a poet, so this is what you should be sounding like. I was like, I am a poet, but I grew up in Calumet City, so I'm gonna sound like, you know, we used to talk at River Oaks Mall. So I was very stubborn about wanting to hold on to that.
Yeah, you know, like my parents are also immigrants, and like the high school I went to is very diverse and has a lot of immigrants. And continues to have a lot of immigrants, and like it's the only place I have never questioned my identity. So like, really resonated with what you said about like just being with a bunch of other people in the in-between. That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you for the question.
Oh yeah. Kenny, do you want to ask a question, or I can also ask?
I didn't have one. Sometimes you get caught up listening.
I know he'll do that to you, honestly, from what I'm seeing. So I think another question I want to follow up with is, so many of the titles of your poems are just beautiful, like insane. And I just kind of want to know, like, when you're writing your poetry, what is the process for how you're titling it? Like, it's just really like I love the world, so I married it. Like, who thinks like this? I'm really just
I love that. I really love that title too. Thank you for that. How do I come up with the titles? So I think that usually I'm kind of a very top-down writer. So one of the things that I do when I write is I write with multiple writing spaces around me. So I'll be typing on my laptop, but then I'll keep a journal next to me so I can kind of take notes and write down anything that kind of flashes across my mind. And the reason that I do that is because I think one of my strengths and one of my weaknesses is that I tend to think very linearly. And so sometimes I think I'm like writing a poem, and so I'm very focused on holding that thought in my head. and I'll ignore some of the other things that are flashing across. And what I found is that sometimes those like secondary thoughts, those kind of detours actually are more fertile for like poetry, or like actually more imaginative than whatever kind of thought is rooted in my head at first, right? Like it's the second thought that I need to kind of slow down and listen to. So the titles will begin because I'm like looking for language that is interesting to me, that I think might be useful in some way to me. So a title like "I Love the World, So I Married It" comes from, I had a phrase in my head stuck from childhood, which was like, you know, when I was a kid, everyone would say, like, if someone was, we would say it about everything, right? Oh, you love Nintendo so much, why don't you marry it, right? Oh, you love pizza so much, why don't you marry it, right? On and on. And at the time, I don't know, I can't remember exactly where I was, but I remember like it was a sunny day. I was living in New York, and I was maybe going to brunch with friends, or maybe I was coming from brunch with friends. Like maybe I had been drinking. I don't know what it was, but I just remember having that thought to myself, like I'm really so in love with the world right now. And then that like annoying kid came up too that was like, oh, if you're in love with the world, why don't you marry it, right? And then, you know, I don't know about all of you, but sometimes those thoughts then get very morbid, right? Which is like, damn, well, if I married the world, like, what if we got divorced, right? Anyway, that's like the whole process, and how. So sometimes so a lot of times the titles come first, and I want something that feels imaginatively provoking for me, that feels interesting or funny to me. And then I can kind of figure out and play with where to go from there.
Are we all here for the part 2 of this? I divorced. I love the world so much I married it. Part 2. We got divorced.
But then we got divorced. Yeah.
How did y'all split up the? You don't gotta save it.
Split up the assets.
The assets. Yeah.
We got the kids.
Yeah.
So I believe we are at the last section of our, what do we call this? LMSchat, I guess. Programs are weird. Time is weird. Whatever. Let's just keep going. That we call the chop it up questions, chop it up section. Where we ask Jose important questions. We ask him questions that matter. We ask him questions that
No, sorry. I'm sorry. I meant to click chat. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all good. That's funny. Okay, yeah. We're killing it over here. So yeah, Jose, if you're ready, we'd love to throw these questions at you. Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So, Milk, is it cool if I start, Milka?
If I start, or if you start?
If I start, I want.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm very selfish. I was thinking more about me. So the first question we have for you, we understand through both hearsay and I believe one of your poems that I heard once, that you are a wrestling fan or were a wrestling fan. So our question is, what would your WWE walkout song be? Or WWF, whatever you were watching?
Yeah, this is a great question. Wow. Thank you. I feel so good. This is exactly the question that I wanted to answer and I have not been asked.
Yeah.
So me and my friends have played this game before. I think if I was a wrestler, my name would be the River Oaks Mauler. Just like River Oaks Small, but Mauler, right? Like tough guy. And then the song that I would come out to would be Bad Bunny's Estamos Bien.
Gangster.
Like the song now.
This is so prepared. I love how you were like, he was
ready for this.
I was prepared.
Yeah, no, me and
LMS is
my
about to be
friends,
on
if you all know the poet Nate Marshall, I think maybe he was gonna be
Yeah.
the redliner or something like that. We've talked about this before. We have discussed what our wrestling names would be. So yes, I am prepared for that question.
Amazing.
Okay, so the
Yeah, no, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
next question, which I didn't make, but I thought was a nifty question. If you were a ghost and you had to haunt somewhere or someone, where would it be since it's spooky season?
It is spooky season. Yes. Happy spooky season to all who celebrate. I don't know. If I was a ghost, I would haunt the beach in Cancun or something, you know what I mean? Or I'd be in Oaxaca somewhere. Why? Because I feel like even as a ghost, I would want to be by the water and by the beach. Like I'm not gonna spend my time as a ghost like haunting a winter place. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna go back and like haunt college professors. No, like forget them. I'm gonna go live my best ghastly life in somewhere warm. You know what I mean? Just like hang out, maybe like steal a couple beers from people that are out on the beach. Like that would be fun. I would enjoy that, right?
That was an amazing answer. That was for anybody who is gonna become a ghost at some point. Take notes. Go to somewhere. Ghosts are always in the worst places. They're always in like a closet or an attic that has never seen the light. That's hot beach. Wow.
Can I tell you? So I moved to Jersey City like a year ago, and like 3 or 4 months after me and my fiance moved here, in the middle of the night, we heard like a loud clanging noise, and I got up and I was like, "What is going on?" And couldn't find anything. It wasn't anybody. And then I remember thinking to myself, "Oh, it must have been like some clothes. Some clothes must have fallen, and that's what made the noise." And I went back to sleep. And then I woke up the next day and I was like, "Wait, it couldn't have been some clothes because it wouldn't have been that loud, right? It would like a towel falling does not make a loud noise." So then my fiance was like, "It must have been a ghost." And then she was like, "You know, maybe climate change has displaced some ghosts too." And I was like, wow, that's a bar. And also I feel terrified now. So thank you.
Where is that science fiction at? Climate, yeah.
I think she just freestyled a poem.
I think she just freestyled a poem. She does that sometimes.
Yeah, I guess I know what I'm writing for the next 9 months. I feel like we have a few more questions. What is the last song you were listening to?
Dang, I wish my phone was next to me so I could tell you the truth. I think it was, so Spotify has this feature that lets you create blends with people. And so I really like the playlist that is a blend between like my taste and also my youngest brother. So I want to say the last song that I listened to from that playlist was a Toby Lou song. And which one I cannot remember. But Toby Lou.
Somewhere in his discography is the answer. We're at 8:58. Do we want to do one more question or just?
Yes, we do, Kenny. Yes.
I feel like I know what you're gonna do.
I am gonna ask this question.
I'm a little scared.
It's nothing to be afraid of. I just think it's really fitting. So since this is Chop It Up, I know we were both curious. You know, what do you put in salad?
What do I put in the salad?
We were laughing about this 30 minutes before the show started, and it made the cut. But now you have to answer.
I think it makes sense. Like
it does make sense. It's never not made sense.
Oh, absolutely. I put red onions absolutely going in my salad. Avocado going in my salad 100%. Maybe some sweet potato. But maybe not if I have the avocado in there. Maybe like some sort of cheese. A goat cheese is usually good with the salad. Shirley, you don't like sweet potatoes? You're
Yeah,
breaking
part
me.
of me
You're
is
breaking
like,
my heart
Shirley
right now.
instantly was like, no,
Instantly, right?
we don't
Wow,
do
I
sweet
lost
potatoes.
You might end
Shirley's
up in his
support.
poem. Watch out.
No, I've never had cheese
This
fry
is for
salad.
Shirley, who scoffed at
Yeah,
my
dedicated to
sweet
Shirley, who said,
potatoes.
who was talking trash about sweet
Oh,
potatoes.
a lot of people. Okay,
Wow.
look,
Goat cheese is not it. Goat cheese,
y'all are really.
I'm sorry to disagree. Goat cheese is so good. It's creamy. It adds like a touch of flavor. It holds flavor well, you know.
I'm excited to try this salad because this is
I don't know.
what I never thought of.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's
I would to
called.
goat cheese.
No, what it's called the River Oaks Midnight Mauler salad.
Yeah, exactly.
And we love it.
I love the all caps. We're really getting emotional about goat cheese.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy because I get very emotional about all cheeses. I'm a very big fan of Manchego, you know. So shout out to Manchego. Someone in the chat had a different question about like, does the identity of a poet ever come in conflict with my other identities? I'd say like sometimes I worry that that there's a conflict between like being a poet and then being like a family member, right? Like being a brother to my brothers, being a good son to my parents. But like my youngest brother just spent a week with me, and actually like I did one of these chats and I got asked a very similar question, and I asked him while he was in the room. He was like, well, I don't really think about you as a poet. You're just my brother and you write poems, you know? And so I guess what I've learned is, you know, not really. I think for me, one of the most interesting parts about being a poet is that all of these little things can potentially inspire a way to write a poem, right? And it's because you're not like, you know, someone mentioned my poem about cheese fries. Like that poem is and it is not about cheese fries, right? Like that poem is also a poem about like missing home and all of its various incarnations, right? Not just like the postcard image, but also like the gooey, cheesy ways it manifests itself. So that's a long-winded way to say that, like, no, I like being a poet.
What a perfect way to end this thing. With
Like I know I'm a
gooey
co-host, but I'm an
cheese.
audience member first.
Y'all are so great. Like for real,
What?
what a fun chat. I would do this every night if I could. I feel like we could have like a little David Letterman night show, you know? This would be great.
Pretty much. What next month Jose is gonna be our new co-host. There's 3.
Please, I would be honored. I would be honored to co-host. The jokes are so good.
Thank you. We work hard on them. We were in the right. It's 9:02. Look, we were supposed to end at 9, but we people of color. Come on, we knew we were gonna go over. Our guest, José Olivarez. We'll put his stuff in the chat one more time. Go follow him. Go buy his amazing books. Me and my man Matt already kind of on it. So get like us. Obviously, go get your stuff. Support his work. All those things. And thank you so much for being here with us, Jose.
And before people leave, because I feel like people are about to leave, don't leave yet because we're going to bring out Ryan Hannon to reveal next month's guest.
Yes, I'm here.
Don't
I'm here.
leave yet.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate you being here. Jose, thank you for joining us tonight. It's good to have you, and I know that my students and myself are very happy that you're here. Anyhow, next month, our guest is going to be Jericho Brown, and that will be the last Thursday of October. So please stay tuned for that. We'll be sending out the flyers and registration for that soon. All right, Kenny, Milka, back to you. Jose, thank you again.
Yeah. I also put my Instagram in the chat because I never plug it myself. So if you want to follow me, you can follow me at KennyC113. And you know, just follow me on my follow back. I might not. I don't know what you're about. But go LMSchat, go buy Jose stuff. I think that's all we have to say. And happy spooky season.
Happy spooky season.
Happy spooky season. Great.
All right, guys, be safe.
Take care.
Take care. Thank you.